Dick Gregory was a man whose life defied easy categorization. Born Richard Claxton Gregory on October 12, 1932, in the heart of segregated St. Louis, Missouri, he would grow up to become a comedian, a civil rights activist, a health guru, and an outspoken advocate for justice. Gregory's story is one of transformation, resilience, and a tireless pursuit of truth, a story that reflects the tumultuous landscape of 20th-century America. Gregory's early life was marked by the twin scourges of poverty and racism. He was the second of 6 children, raised by his mother, Lucille, who worked tirelessly to keep the family afloat after Gregory's father abandoned them. The struggles of his youth left an indelible mark on him, instilling a sense of determination and a sharp sense of humor that he would later wield as a weapon against the injustices he witnessed. Life in St. Louis was hard. Gregory's family lived in a poor, predominantly black neighborhood, where opportunities were scarce, and prejudice was a daily reality. Yet, amid the challenges, Gregory discovered his knack for comedy, a talent that allowed him to deflect the pain of discrimination and poverty with laughter. Humor, for Gregory, became both a shield and a sword, a way to survive and to fight back against a world that sought to keep him down. Gregory excelled in track and field during his high school years at Sumner High School, earning a scholarship to Southern Illinois University. But even this opportunity was tainted by the racial barriers of the time. He was a star athlete, yet he faced relentless discrimination on and off the field. These experiences only deepened his resolve to use his voice to challenge the status quo. His time at Southern Illinois was cut short when he was drafted into the U.S. Army during the Korean War. The military, like the rest of America, was deeply segregated, but it was also where Gregory first began to refine his comedic voice. Performing for his fellow soldiers, he developed a style that was sharp, witty, and unafraid to tackle the uncomfortable truths of race in America. After leaving the Army, Gregory returned to Southern Illinois University but soon realized that his true calling lay elsewhere. He dropped out of college and moved to Chicago, where he began to pursue a career in comedy. The 1950s and early 1960s were not an easy time for black comedians. The comedy scene was dominated by white performers, and black comedians were often relegated to the Chitlin Circuit, a network of clubs, theaters, and venues that catered primarily to black audiences. Gregory, however, was determined to break through these barriers. He started performing at small clubs, honing his craft in front of audiences that were often hostile to the kind of comedy he was offering. Gregory's humor was not just about making people laugh, it was about making them think. He used satire to expose the absurdities and injustices of racism, and his style was unlike anything audiences had seen before. His big break came in 1961 when he was invited to perform at the Playboy Club in Chicago. The club, owned by Hugh Hefner, had a policy against booking black comedians for its main stage. However, Hefner, recognizing Gregory's talent and potential, made an exception. Gregory's performance that night was a resounding success. He captivated the audience with his sharp wit and fearless commentary on race relations, marking the beginning of a career that would not only break barriers but also redefine what it meant to be a comedian in America. Gregory's success at the Playboy Club led to a series of high-profile appearances, including on The Tonight Show starring Jack Paar. This was a significant moment in television history. At the time, black performers were rarely invited to sit on the couch for interviews after their performances. But Gregory, refusing to follow this unwritten rule, insisted that he would only perform if he was also allowed to sit and talk with Paar afterward. Paar agreed, and Gregory's appearance on the show made him a household name. As Gregory's fame grew, so did his commitment to using his platform for social change. The 1960s were a time of upheaval in America, with the civil rights movement gaining momentum and the nation grappling with issues of race, war, and inequality. Gregory saw his comedy not just as entertainment, but as a tool for activism. He believed that humor could be a powerful force for change, capable of exposing the truth in ways that traditional activism could not. Gregory became deeply involved in the civil rights movement, participating in marches, sit-ins, and protests. He was arrested numerous times for his involvement in demonstrations, including the historic March on Washington in 1963, where Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Gregory was there, not just as a supporter, but as a leader, using his voice to rally people to the cause of justice. In 1965, Gregory turned his focus to the voting rights movement, participating in the Selma to Montgomery marches. He was among the many who were beaten and arrested by police during these peaceful protests. But Gregory was undeterred. He continued to speak out against the systemic racism that disenfranchised millions of Black Americans, often using his comedy to draw attention to the cause. His activism was not without personal cost. Gregory's commitment to the movement meant that he often put his career on the line, turning down lucrative opportunities to focus on the fight for civil rights. But for Gregory, the cause was always more important than the career. He once famously said, "I never learned hate at home, or shame. I had to go to school for that. I had to sit in front of a television set for that." His words reflected the deep-seated belief that the fight against racism was not just a political battle, but a moral one. Gregory's activism was not confined to the streets, it also found its way into the political arena. In 1967, he ran for mayor of Chicago against the incumbent, Richard J. Daley. Gregory's campaign was symbolic, highlighting the systemic corruption and racism that plagued the city. Although he did not win, his candidacy was a powerful statement about the need for change in American politics. The following year, Gregory ran for President of the United States as a write-in candidate for the Peace and Freedom Party. His platform was built on civil rights, social justice, and opposition to the Vietnam War. Gregory's presidential campaign was quixotic, to say the least, but it was also a testament to his belief in the power of political activism to bring about change. He knew he wouldn't win, but that wasn't the point. The point was to give voice to the issues that mainstream politicians were ignoring. Gregory's political activism was not without controversy. He was a vocal critic of the U.S. government and its policies, and he often found himself at odds with the powers that be. He was subjected to surveillance by the FBI, which saw him as a potential threat to national security. But Gregory was undeterred. He continued to speak out, using his platform to challenge the status quo and to advocate for a more just and equitable society. In the 1970s, Gregory embarked on a new chapter in his life, one that was focused on health and wellness. He became a vegetarian and an advocate for natural health remedies, promoting a diet free of processed foods, alcohol, and tobacco. Gregory's interest in health was deeply connected to his activism. He believed that by taking control of their health, Black Americans could resist the systems that oppress them. Gregory's commitment to health and wellness was not just about physical well-being, it was about empowerment. He authored several books on health and nutrition, including Dick Gregory's Natural Diet for Folks Who Eat, Cookin' with Mother Nature and Cookin' with Mother Nature, The Dick Gregory Natural Diet for Folks Who Eat. In these books, Gregory advocated for a holistic approach to health, one that encompassed not just diet but also mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. Gregory's health advocacy was also deeply personal. In the 1980s, he undertook a series of fasts to protest various social injustices, including the treatment of Native Americans, the apartheid regime in South Africa, and the U.S. government's policies toward the poor. These fasts were a testament to Gregory's belief in the power of personal sacrifice to bring about social change. But Gregory's commitment to health and wellness was not without its challenges. The rigorous fasting and the stress of his activism took a toll on his body. He suffered from heart disease in his later years, a condition that would ultimately lead to his death. Yet, even as his health declined, Gregory remained committed to his principles, continuing to speak out on the issues that mattered most to him. As he aged, Gregory remained an active and influential figure in the world of comedy and activism. He continued to perform stand-up comedy, using his platform to address contemporary social and political issues. He was a frequent guest on talk shows and news programs, where he offered his insights on everything from race relations to government corruption. In his later years, Gregory also became known for his outspoken views on various conspiracy theories. He questioned the official narratives of events like the assassination of John F. Kennedy, the September 11th attacks, and the deaths of prominent figures like Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X. While some of his views were controversial, they were consistent with his lifelong distrust of authority and his belief that the truth was often hidden from the public. Gregory's willingness to speak out on these issues, even when they were unpopular, was a reflection of his deep commitment to truth and justice. He was never one to shy away from controversy, believing that it was his duty to challenge the narratives that were presented to the public. For Gregory, the fight for justice was not just a political struggle, but a moral one, a struggle that required a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. On August 19, 2017, Dick Gregory passed away at the age of 84 due to heart failure. His death marked the end of a life that had been spent fighting against injustice, using humor as both a weapon and a shield. Gregory's passing was a profound loss to the world, but it was also a reminder of the toll that a life of relentless activism can take. Gregory's death was met with an outpouring of tributes from across the world. Celebrities, activists, and ordinary people alike mourned the loss of a man who had fearlessly confronted the issues that others were too afraid to address. His death was a reminder of the impact that one person can have on the world, a reminder that the fight for justice is never easy, but always necessary.